sometimes people they speak because they just want other people to they want they like the sound of their own voice. Let's put it that way. And anytime anyone says anything that they disagree with, they respond. And then of course, if somebody disagrees with them again, they have to come to their own defense. And they're just battling back and forth, and nothing's getting done. And their assertiveness is counting against them. They don't need to defend themselves. Actually, the reality is defending yourself once and doing it in a concise manner, one time in a meeting, is enough. People get it. This person's assertive. They're not going to just, people can't just walk all over them. They're not just going to sit back and do nothing about it. But you don't need to do it all the time. It gets excessive. And then it makes you look like you're not assertive, or you're inconfident in a sense. Okay, enthusiasm, optimism, and warmth. Let me just ask this simple question. Look at the opposite of this. The opposite of enthusiasm, optimism, and warmth is dispassionate, pessimistic, and cold. Dispassionate, pessimistic, and cold. Do you want to work for a leader who's dispassionate, pessimistic, and cold? Hopefully the answer is no. So it's clear that some level of enthusiasm, sort of what everybody has experienced thus far when they're talking about these subject matters of leadership, I can tell that you're enthusiastic about it. Optimism. Well, leadership's hard, but guess what? We can do it and we can be great at it. And warmth is sort of the ability to be emotionally intelligent as well. But warmth is when you're smiling and you're and have positive emotions about you. And even if you just hold yourself in a way that's not downtrodden, people tend to think that that's warm, a face that is approachable, eye contact that is soothing and comforting. One of my favorite phrases is a anxious free presence. Have you ever been around somebody with just an anxious free presence? Or have you ever been around somebody that just exudes anxiety and you're saying to yourself, man, I don't know if I stick around here, something bad might happen. It seems to be that this person is anxious. Those are not great characteristics to sustain as a leader. And back to what Jonathan said, this is really important. If you're in an emotionally bad place and you're constantly neurotic in a sense, this is a problem. And if you're not enthusiastic, optimistic, and warm, and say you're sad, I mean, I already kind of went over that, but the point is your followers will lose respect, they'll lose credibility with you, and you need to take that into consideration. Is this paradox with leadership? It's we need to be confident and humble at the same time. We should be funny, but not too funny. We should be assertive, but really, when you're overly assertive, that's not a good thing. It's a balance and it's contextual. When Erwin was talking about, it's based on the circumstance. Certain times humor is appropriate. Certain times it's not, and that's why emotional intelligence comes into play as well. So let me explain it. So I worked in construction for a long time, and I was also a football player in college. And still to this day, I go and try to build relationships for some consulting assignments, and I travel. I work with special forces in the military, and we travel to different cities, and we work with electric cooperatives. And with electric cooperatives, there's a lot of linemen. So you get the idea. Men in frontline situations, I'll speak from a men's perspective, and I think from the science, this is valid. And also for women, it's a little bit different. But sometimes men build relationships based on humor of picking on one another, meaning in a way of sort of poking fun in a delightful relational kind of way and seeing how the other person is going to react. If they're too sensitive or too sensitive, I guess is the word I'm looking for, then you might not be able to fit in with the cultural norms. But if you can take a joke and you can give a joke back to somebody else, it tends to be an endearing quality and relationship building tactic. And so that's sort of more on the front line kind of stuff. But as a leader, it's a little different. As a leader, when you say something towards somebody and you poke fun at them and it's inappropriate and it's around their friends, and if it's out of context, that's a problem. So it's one thing for the linemen, let's say, to poke fun of one another. But when their supervisor comes in and starts picking on that one guy that just had that joke and sort of adds onto it, that's not always a good thing. So what leaders can do as a leadership tactic, one of the things to do to add humor, if you're in a situation like I just described, is to actually be self-defecating is not the right word. You can deprave yourself in a joke. So I'm not a comedian. I've never been a comedian. I'm not a good joke teller. And me even saying that right now in front of you, I know it's not funny, but it lightens the mood. It's you're able to speak, make fun of yourself in a way. I'm not a very good driver of cars. I can drive race cars, but I can't drive this van. Just saying something like that is helpful for people from a female perspective, what I understand is that building relationships is really a lot of times based on complimenting one another and based on it's almost the opposite and based on those kinds of affirmations and like sensing the status of where you are, what you're wearing, how you're wearing it, this kind of stuff, and being able to engage in a small talk is really important because a small talk leads to deeper emotional listening and all this kind of stuff. For men, it's like, hey punk, get your act together, you're slow, you're lazy, let's go. And if the guy's like, don't call me lazy, But instead he says, all right, man, I'll get you next time. My bad, kind of steps back into action. That's appropriate. That's where sense of humor can be used as a tool, a tactic, a way with which to build relationships. Again, it can be used as a derogatory thing as well. So thank you for adding some context there. Likability factor, humility, extroversion, and sense of humor, they all come into play with the likability factor. One of the things I'll add with sense of humor is sometimes laughter in business and in leadership, it can be really enjoyable. I mean, you're in an hour-long meeting and someone cracks a really funny joke. That's great. And so the opposite of that would be a guy who's always joking. If you've been around this type of person where every single time you get in front of them, everything is a joke, everything is sarcastic, everything, and you're sort of not really sure how to interact with them because they're constantly making these jokes. And you're like, okay, dude, let's move on. And I've been with those people as well. And when they're overly using the sense of humor, constantly making jokes, it could be an insecurity that they suffer from. So proactive personality, mindfulness, passion for work and the people, flexibility and adaptability, courage, and we're going to get into emotional intelligence in just a second. But this is task-related personality traits of a leader. The difference between traits and task-related traits, some are relational and some are task-focused, meaning we have to get things done. And in order to get things done, it's a little bit different than just building relationships with other people and just exuding confidence as a leader. So emotional intelligence, let me break it down for a second. Okay, if you look at the visual on the screen, and I'll articulate it for those of you who aren't looking at the screen. The first one, which is the basis of emotional intelligence, which we talked about, is self-awareness. The example that I use with self-awareness is my I was getting ready to go do a presentation, and it was about 5 o'clock at night, and I didn't have dinner, and I was sort of hungry, and it's been a long day, and I had to do the presentation, so I was a little bit anxious about it, and I had a suit on, and I was leaving the house, and as I was leaving the house, and I was borderline going to be late unless I left the house right away, my dog got sick and threw up on the floor. And if you can envision this, I'm in a suit, I'm about to leave, and my dog now threw up all over the floor. I can't just leave the throw up there, and I'm frustrated. And the dog's not sick. She's just every once in a while she's just frustrated and she throws up. And of course, maybe she is sick, but she ate some grass outside or something. So don't be too empathetic for the dog. Be empathetic for me. So I immediately, the first thing is I go down, I get a paper towels and I get the spray and I'm down on my knees and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm cleaning up this throw up. It smells bad. And I have the throw up in my hand. And here comes my dog walking over and she wants to like love on me and give me a kiss. So my first reaction is like, oh, like I want to smack the dog in the face. But the reality is, I realize, you know what? Probably shouldn't smack my dog in the face. That's not a good idea. So I was self-aware of the fact I'm just frustrated. Yes, this is difficult. I'm tired. I have not eaten in a while. I'm a little bit anxious. So I was aware of my mood. And I was acknowledging the fact that I could potentially be susceptible to doing something I don't want to do. Self-awareness. So critical, so important. Next thing, with self-awareness, you move to self-management. So after you're aware of what you just experienced, obviously you have to control your emotions. That's self-management, the ability to control or redirect disruptive, impulsive moods, the propensities to suspend judgment, to think before acting. Think about that situation. I was aware that I was hungry and I was annoyed and I was frustrated. My dog came over to me, and instead of smacking my dog, which is what I felt like giving her a smack on the face, I said, "Oh my gosh, she's just sick. She didn't mean to." And I controlled that. I didn't do it. I didn't smack my dog. And so that's sort of the situation with that. Another one is if you ever been to a, let's just say, a therapist in the past, or you've been to somebody who wants to help you with some problems in your life. A lot of times, what they'll do is if you come in sort of overly emotional, they will get you sometimes a look at a screen and they'll say, okay, here are the 15 different common emotions that you could be experiencing: anger, frustration, sadness, depression, disgust. If you've ever seen that movie, what do you feel right now? And you have to sort of pick those out. I know it's kind of a corny exercise, but you say to yourself, "Oh, I'm a little disgusted. I'm a little annoyed, and I'm a little anxious." And then, it's the moment you do that, and you become a little bit self-aware, you can then regulate your emotions better. You can self-manage. All right, now let's move to social awareness. So once I control my own self, I'm aware of what's going on. I can then manage my behavior. This is a big deal. Those two quadrants. Oh my gosh, awareness and regulation. That'll keep you out of jail. That'll keep you from doing stupid things in relationships. That'll keep you from losing credibility as a leader. There's a lot that can go into that. Now you move to social awareness. It's not sufficient for a leader to be self-aware and self-manage. We also have to be others aware and aware of what's happening in the lives of others. So let's just run that situation out where I have, cleaned up this mess for my dog and I'm a bit frustrated and I walk into my presentation and let's say my boss is there. And instead of regulating my emotions by the time I left my house to the presentation, I showed up a little bit late and I showed up and I was just, whew, I was just still charged up. And my boss was like, "Hey, Claude, how you doing? You ready to speak? Okay, go speak. Good luck. See you later." And didn't wasn't aware that I was in kind of a tough place. And I think this is where Jessica made a comment. Hey, my leader's a little bit stressed out. Maybe I should ask him how they're doing. If we can't pick up on social cues from other people on how they're feeling, and in some way try to manage that, the ability to understand the emotional makeup of other people, skill in treating people accordingly to their emotional reactions, and 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 see them where they are. If we can't do that, we will lose leadership ability to influence. So being socially aware is just as important as being self-aware and self-managed. And then in addition, this is the tough part. So not only do we need to be self-aware, then we need to manage ourselves. And also we need to be aware of what's happening in the people around us. Then we need to manage our relationships. So the example that I use with this one is that when you manage your relationships, I'm going to move back to this other slide. Um, there are times where you have the bandwidth, the emotional bandwidth to call your grandfather or to call your mom, call your dad and check in and see how they're doing. If if we if we're constantly emotionally all over the place and we're not aware that our mom just had a surgery 2 days ago on her, maybe she had her like a skin cancer removed, and we don't check in on her and see how she's doing, and she's sitting there at home hoping that you call and we don't call her, we're not managing our relationships. And remember that one of the biggest things that we do as leaders is relationship management. We want to build a relationship with other people. We want to get people to trust us. So our ability to be self-aware, manage our own emotions, then we move to social awareness, and then it's relationship management. All of those first three lead to building positive, encouraging, uplifting, authentic relationships with others. So that's emotional intelligence, in a nutshell. If you have a leader who's really smart and a leader who has a great personality, if you were to take all those leaders and you were to measure their life over the next 100 years or 50 years and see their success, the ones that will succeed, even though they're equally matched in intelligence and they're equally matched with the right type of personality, are the ones that harness the X factor of emotional intelligence. Those are the leaders that stand out on the pack. It's not enough if you're a high capacity leader to just be smart. You also have to have high EQ, emotional intelligence, and it can be learned, it can be taught, it can be practiced. Remember neuroplasticity, and it's very, very, very important. And of course, some of these things too go along with emotional intelligence. That's why when we looked at that thing that, if you remember the picture of me in the middle, you had IQ, you had emotional intelligence, and then you had personality. There were the three bubbles. A lot of these things we're talking about with traits kind of fit into one of those bubbles. Mindfulness, we talked about that. Passion for work and the people. Let me just address this real quick. And you can see my passion for leadership, I hope, and the subject matter of leadership, and see the value of that for sure. But the I, I work with a lot of small businesses, and with the small businesses, I try to teach entrepreneurship skills and the mechanics of entrepreneurship. And I sat in on a presentation, and I watched this guy over the course of a couple months build a presentation about his business was cow poop, and he called it. What did he call it? Called it Black Gold is the name of the business. And what he was capable of doing is he was capable of harnessing. I think it was horse poop actually. I apologize. Taking all of this dung essentially and putting it into a process where he would refine it, and he would turn it into fertilizer. And it was a dirty job for sure. And he was presenting a way of, distributing the fertilizer. It was natural, it was organic. He found a couple channels to be able to set up some customers with the fertilizer, and he was able to sort of scale the business. And he had all the right things, all the right mechanics. And he was in the middle of this presentation, and he was presenting. I think the prize was for $50,000. And in the middle of the presentation, he paused and he stopped, and you could see his wheels were turning, and he was doing good. And everyone's like, okay, what's going to happen? And he looked around to the people and he said, you know what? He said, we don't like having to work with poop all the time. And I certainly don't like, he said a different word, I think. And I certainly don't like the smell and it being around. And it's not an easy thing at all. I'm not passionate about it. But he looked up and he connected with every person. He said, but I'm passionate about what it can do. I'm passionate about the people that can get good food because of it. I'm passionate because it's clean, it's organic, it doesn't hurt the environment. I'm passionate about how it could make a difference in this world. And he just expressed this passion in such a unbelievably good way that it took everybody's in that room. Everybody in that room was captivated, and he ended up winning the $50,000. And I think it was because of that moment, because without that passion, without demonstrating to the audience that he believed so much in this product, that you should also believe in him because of his passion. That's the essence of why passion is important in leadership. And you can tell when people have it and when people don't. And that was the story I tend to use with passion and enthusiasm. And certainly a passion for your mission, and certainly a passion for your vision of your organization. is important. We talked about emotional intelligence, flexibility, adaptability. If we don't hit refresh every once in a while and we realize that the things we know need to be updated and this continual learning path of being curious, we're not going to be able to stay flexible and adaptable. Being flexible and adaptable is a core trait for a leader to exude, and it can be learned. Flexibility is the ability to adjust to different situations. A leader must be flexible enough to cope with such changes. I told some of you I teach in prison. I teach in Everglades Correctional Institution. I think Jessica is also a corrections officer there, but there are situations and there are times where they go into count and they I can't get in the door for an hour and I my class started an hour ago, or they won't allow me to do certain things and I have a plan and I go there and this is my vocation. Like I want to teach, I'm ready to go, but I have to be completely flexible and adaptable to the circumstance. What's happening in that institution is outside of my control, and for me to be trying to control how I get in, it's not going to get me anywhere. And that's again an extreme, but I over time I actually got used to the fact that hey, I'm going to go there, and if I have a 30-minute delay and I have to wait outside for 30 minutes, I start stretching, start meditating. I start getting into my, oh, this is my time to be flexible and adaptable. Let me just, you know, go with the flow here. Again, that's an example that you can see as a leader. If you're not able to be flexible and adaptable and you're so structured and so rigid with your desire to control the outcome and your desire to lead effectively and efficiently, and you're so numeric and you don't understand why did Jenny come in late today and how come that car is dirty, then it's going to be hard for you to cope with changes in the environment. Courage, I think that need not be discussed. The factor of courage to step up and stand out when things aren't going right. Fortitude is another good word. It's courage under fire. I think that the display of courage is it can only come organically. I don't see how it can come in a manufactured way. But to be willing to fall on the sword, to be willing to be the first one that runs into the fire, to be willing to demonstrate as a servant leader that you're willing to do what it takes to help the people on your team, that's powerful, very powerful. And I'm sure you can see how courage is a trait that can be very impactful with leadership. Uh, Being creative is also a skill that can be practiced. It is a personality trait. It's the personality trait of openness to experience tend to be those who are a bit more creative. But if you are leader, you also are a problem solver. And if you're a manager, you're also a problem solver. The ideation process only happens when it's practiced. One of the best ways to learn creativity, and remember, this is a good trait for leaders to have, is to journal, is to write down ideas, is to be artistic, um, possibly be involved in athletics. So there's a CEO of Goldman Sachs, I forget his name, but he's a DJ on the weekends, a legit DJ. He goes out and he's got a whole Instagram profile and Instagram page, and he gets paid to go and DJ events. And this is a CEO of a major company. And one of the reasons why he wants to do it is because he wants to use different parts of his brain, and he wants to see if he can jive with the audience. If anyone's DJ at a party or anything, it can be very enlightening to see how the crowd flows and the time of the night and what music's socially appropriate and what music maybe isn't. If you look at weddings, they're very instrumental with all of this. There you go. Yeah, that's David Solomon. And if you let me see if there he is. Look at this guy. He's out there, CEO of a major company, DJing. See if we can get some more images going here. Boom, look at him. So, case in point, if this guy's out there DJing, he understands the value of being creative. We as leaders need to value that as well. Okay, so let's get started. And just to formally wrap up the trade approach, the what you'll see in professions a lot of times for, let's say you're in a role and you are slated to be a high potential leader. Sometimes they'll do assessments to assess you on these traits. And again, some of them are sort of fixed, so you just fill out the questions the best you can. And others, like emotional intelligence assessments, can be worked on. So you'll see some assessments to understand this trait approach. A lot of organizations use that. And I think what is really important to understand its limitations because traits are not always, you don't always have the right match, meaning just because I have I'm smart and I'm capable using my mind does not mean I'm going to be a good leader. So sometimes you'll pick someone because of a trait, but it turns out that they are the wrong fit for the situation. So there's a lot of flaws to the trait approach, and we'll be moving away from it just a little bit in the coming chapters. But it's important to understand. You'll hear a lot of times a trait-based approach to leadership, and we spend a lot of time on that. All right, so I'm going to show a video in order to get us warmed up for this next section. Has anybody seen the movie Armageddon? So to fill in for some of the people who haven't seen Armageddon, the situation is a bit extreme. There's a meteor that is propelling itself towards the Earth, and it's going to end mankind. It's a huge meteor, and not a lot of people know about it, but there is a sort of a CIA task force that is their mission is to find a team of people to fly up to the meteor and to inject a nuclear bomb essentially into the middle of the meteor to blow up the meteor before it hits the Earth. So it's a major mission. It's really important. It's an Earth-saving mission, and it's not like they're Avengers. They're just human beings. And the person who is leading the mission, his name is Bruce Willis, is the actor in the movie. I don't know his name, but this is a scene of him building his team. There's a little bit of crude stuff in the scene, but you're all adults, you understand. And what I want you to notice is his what he's doing, how he is acting during this scene. And cool, calm, and collected. And I guess the key word is he does he have charisma in the way in which he's behaving? And we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like in this particular situation once we watch it. And how much did you hear him talk in that clip? And when he did speak, was he calculated with his words? Does it seem like he's a man on a mission? Tell me what kind of behaviors, verbal and nonverbal, that he was exuding as that he was a man on a mission. The other thing too is at the end, everybody showed up. And if you remember, the one guy, he actually, it's the boyfriend of his daughter, and he actually chased him around a rig for some of you, a rig, an oil rig, and shot a gun at him because he was, kissing his daughter or something like that. But he still wanted to work for Harry Stamper. Why? Why do we want to work for certain people? What is it about those people? You don't have to answer the question, but I want you to think about this. And they all showed up. They all wanted to take the call. They all likely left their jobs or their whatever they were doing. Every single one of them had their own lives, but they dropped what they were doing and they decided to go work with Harry Stamper. They had no idea what the mission was. And they were there. If you can see how the movie progresses for some of you who watch it, they were willing to give their life, in a sense, for this man, for this mission, because he was a man on a mission. And there's probably other scenes where he talks a little bit more, but I want you to think about that as we talk about charisma. Charisma can be good, can be bad, but it can be practiced. And there's no way Harry would have been successful in the mission unless he had his crew. And he was assertive in saying, I'm only doing this if I get my crew. And the guy said, all right, no problem, because he was assertive. If he said, oh, just give me a team and, I'm here, I'll lead you, whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. Not necessarily. I mean, that may not be the case. You might say that, but in your mind, you're thinking, man, I wish I told them that I was only going to do it if I had my crew. But Harry says it. And then the other thing, too, that I think Jonathan brought up, or it might have been Jose, he knew the people on the team. He knew their quirks, he knew their personalities. And in order to get a bunch of people with different personalities and different traits and different motives to work together, that's not an easy task. You saw all of those personalities. There were a lot of specialists there. Who's to say they would work well together? And another scene throughout the movie, and I'll leave Armageddon once we're done with this. It's just cool to, if you understand the arc of the hero, reluctant to take the journey. And then finally they're like, okay, I'll take the journey. And in the process of taking the journey, they go through struggles and they do whatever. And then there tends to be a moment where they become the hero. And Iron Man, it was, he was this arrogant. So in the Avengers, Iron Man was this arrogant guy, and he really was a self-serving billionaire, and he was out for himself. Yeah, he was a good guy, but he became the leader of the team throughout the journey of the Avengers, and eventually he gave his life to save the world. So how does this guy, this self-serving person, then become this person who gives their life? Well, that's the process. That's the process of leadership. And in that process, people are going to betray you, people are going to hurt you, and you're going to have to know how to use certain skills and techniques in order to deal with that. So charisma and transformational leadership is the topic, really the topic for tonight. And I'm going to share my screen once again and see if I can elaborate why charisma is so very important. All right. I talked last class about how sometimes charisma can count against the person, but what I meant by that is when a leader is looked at or foreseen as, well, they can do it, or, well, because they're charismatic, they have the answer. Let's just leave it to them. That is really the opposite of the charisma I'm going to try to elaborate on tonight, because it's not necessarily charisma. Charisma is knowing when to speak, knowing when not to speak, and knowing how to delegate and knowing when to embrace challenges and whatever that looks like. So it's an art, it's a divinely inspired gift. To be able to have charisma, it means you're having a charming and colorful personality. Charisma is positive and compelling quality that makes It makes many others want to be led by the person who has it. And we looked at that Pierre, the gentleman who is the leader of the Conservative Party, who was eating an apple as he was getting an interview. And I actually saw another clip of him. You know, he stands up in front of people. He's dressed appropriately. He stands up tall. He walks with a posture, and people are drawn to him because of his charisma, the way he speaks, his inflection, whatever that looks like. So hopefully you'll see in certain people what charisma looks like. And let me tell you something, people aren't born with charisma. Charisma can be learned, it can be practiced. And again, this is sort of something that we're going to be drawing out in this class. Behaviors and attitudes of truly charismatic leaders go well beyond superficial aspects of impression management. So we're not just hoping that people like us. We are we are doing more than that. Truly charismatic leaders will work hard to create positive visions. Let's see if I can get a visual. If you're going to exude charisma, we talked about the concept of a vision, and storytelling is a big part of that. So if Harry was to onboard this team and he was to get them in a room and he was to stumble through the mission that they were going to go on, it would be a little bit harder for them to follow him. So charismatic leaders are visionaries. They're masterful communication skills. They're capable of using eye contact tactfully. They're capable of shaking hands in a way where you're only shaking a hand for an appropriate amount of time. You're not squeezing too hard or not squeezing at all, ability to inspire trust, ability to make group members feel capable, tactful in social situations, energy and action orientation, emotional expressiveness and warmth, romanticize risk, the use of unconventional strategies. So let me unpack just one or two of these. Making others feel capable. There's going to be times in your leadership journey where somebody else is going to be going through something and you have the social awareness to see that they're going through something and you pull them aside and you ask them what's going on and you speak hope and life into them. That is a characteristic of a charismatic leader, and charisma is capable of doing that in people. So emotional intelligence is almost a given to be charismatic. Let's talk about romanticizing risk. So you wonder why entrepreneurs are tend to be these influencers in a way, because they're the ones that have gone out onto the ledge. They're the ones who risked it all, and they're the ones who rolled the dice and worked hard and had Doritos on their chest as they were on the couch in Silicon Valley, and they made it. And there's a story there. There's a backing there. We tend to look at that as like, wow, I wish I can do that. First of all, entrepreneurs are not risk takers, they're risk mitigators. Yes, they take risk, but they do everything they can to ensure that they're going to win. That's a smart entrepreneur. But what a charismatic leader is capable of doing is saying that the risk that we're going to take by going up to this asteroid and planting a nuclear bomb in it, this is from the Armageddon movie, and blowing up the nuclear bomb is going to be difficult. And you could potentially die in the process. But taking that risk is the ultimate sacrifice for your family, for your friends, and for the future. And to be able to take that romanticism and bake it into risk, charismatic leaders are capable of doing that. Can anybody think of a movie scene or a situation where a leader is capable of bringing people into a situation where it's uncomfortable, but because the leader's there, that person ends up doing it? I can think of a few, but I'm curious if you guys have any. Gotham's a scary place, but if not him, then who? And being the person with the metaphorical cape on that is capable of saving Gotham is romantic. Like, wow, Harvey Dent. I think doesn't he turn into Two-Face? And and there is a compelling reason to try to save Gotham, even though it's a very difficult task. Look at Elon Musk. He's going to the moon. Oh, sorry, he's not going to the moon. He's trying to colonize Mars, which is even crazier. I mean, what a risky undertaking, but it's sort of interesting in a way. And he's capable of doing that in a way where and I wouldn't call Elon Musk necessarily charismatic, but the fact that he's taking such a risk and he's romanticizing that risk and he's storytelling around what will happen, what that'll look like, the human race, trying to have a legacy, trying to continue our species, all this kind of stuff. It speaks to our inherent nature to continue to survive and thrive. And there's the capability of being able to romanticize risk, I think is a pretty cool one. So hopefully you're getting an idea of what charisma looks like. And it's a bit elusive, I know, but we'll talk about some more ways to walk it out in some of these later slides. And forgive me as I kind of breeze over them a little bit because I don't have a lot of time. But hubris is actually a bad thing that happens with leaders. There's a book, Socrates wrote it. I think it's Odysseus or something that has hubris and ends up dying. is a tendency to hold overly confident view of one's capabilities and abuse power for one's own selfish goals. So when somebody is capable of being charismatic and they could use the tactics of good handshakes, good social skills, appropriate question asking, being able to romanticize risk, having the ability to garner people around a mission, dressing appropriately, standing up confidently, communicating and speaking well. I mean, trying to articulate what a charismatic leader looks like. Sometimes they could maybe overly own that in a way where they then become too confident in their skills or abilities. And that turns into hubris, where they think that they can save Gotham. But really, at the end of the day, they should surrender. And yes, surrender is not really an option in that case, but sometimes it can become a bad thing. Maybe you're too confident because of your charisma. So that's where it can be scary. And narcissism, this is a fun one. There's whole studies on narcissism. Jordan Peterson talks about it a decent amount. It's looked at as a bad thing. I think in excess, it's certainly a bad thing. But when you post on social media a picture of yourself, there's a level of narcissism with that. And I mean, I do it too, so it's understandable. When you tell a story about how you got a raise at work, there's sort of like an ego to that. Look what I did. Look at who I am. But that's sort of healthy, and it's okay to have a bit of narcissistic tendency, being confident in oneself, being able to, what do you say, talk oneself up, promote yourself is not a bad thing. And charismatic leaders can do that. So charismatic leaders are capable of going into an interview and speaking highly of their past work experience. And there's a level of narcissism with that, but it's okay. When you think about branding yourself and promoting yourself, it's sort of needed sometimes in leadership, or you'll never get the opportunity to lead. So some of the bad sides to narcissism, narcissists have little empathy for others because they're so self-focused. I mean, if you ever been in a conversation where somebody's one-upping you all the time, that's a bit frustrating. I went to get ice cream last night. Well, I ate ice cream at home and I had the best ice cream in the world. Oh, that's weird. I saw a movie with my daughter the other day. Well, I went to a Broadway play in New York City and it was live and we paid $1,000 a ticket. It's like, come on, man. I can't even communicate with you because you're constantly um, taking the conversation about me and you're putting it towards yourself. A smart tactic with charismatic leaders, which is sort of a sales tactic, is to ask people questions. It's to draw out the most important word a person hears in a party is their own name. And to be able to ask a person about themselves is usually a sign of charisma. To speak appropriate about oneself, to relate to people, self-promoting, and then to listen to what other people have to say. And to do that in a humble way, that's where having a bit of narcissism is a good thing. To ask everybody if you could go through this exercise with me. If you're busy doing other things, I understand. But I want you to close your eyes and I want you to think for a minute. It's Monday. We have a lot to do this week. And on Friday, the week's going to be over. So I want you to envision everything that you know you need to do this week. I want you to envision you getting that done. And I want you to see yourself not only getting it done, but getting it done with a pep in your step, getting it done better than you've ever gotten it done. I want you to envision winning. I want you to envision doing all of your goals and being confident, getting up early, cleaning the house, getting your schoolwork done, showing up to work. You know what? You're done everything you need to do by 3 p.m. on Friday. It feels so good. I want you to put yourself in that position on Friday, and I want you to celebrate right now in your mind with all of the goals and hard work that you've accomplished this week. You did it. You're here. You did it. Nice work. Okay. Open your eyes. There's hopefully an element of a part of you who saw that and feels good about that and wants to attain that and is willing to do what it takes between now and Friday to get that vision. That's what leaders do. Leaders can paint that picture for you. And they can not only paint that picture, but they can help you achieve the motivation you need to make that happen. And the best leaders have a vision that is even more than what you expected. Not only are you crushing your goals this week, but you just won the lottery. Like something above and beyond what you're capable of envisioning for yourself. They're capable of getting you to see that and draw that out in you. So, all right, I teach and I consult and I have a house in the Redlands and I sort of have my world, right? And it's only because I listen and learn and I try to be inspired by other people that I'm really capable of even seeing outside of my world. And it's because I want other people's visions to captivate me. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I have to want that vision for myself. So good charismatic leaders are capable of doing that. A mission is a purpose, whereas a vision is an image of the future. Inspirational vision statements are very impactful for organizations. Charismatic leaders know how to bring that out. Here's just some examples of impactful vision statements. I'm going to choose to use a different example because I love this one. Mission and vision of Legos. Mission of Legos. This is a mission and vision. Looks like. If you don't know Legos, Legos has really transformed a lot over the years. They used to be just these building blocks that maybe you grew up playing with, but then they got into video games and movies and all sorts of different avenues. So their mission, one purpose. Every single person on our team is united behind our mission to inspire and develop the builders of tomorrow. That's a great mission. So let's look at the vision. This is it. So inspire and help to build tomorrow. Lego play starts to release a child's potential from the moment they pick up the first block. So let's just talk about that for a second. Like this is our ultimate purpose is to inspire and develop children to think creatively, reason systematically, and release their potential to shape their own future. All right, let me start that over. Our mission here at Legos is to inspire and develop the builders of tomorrow. We have a vision that every child can release their potential from the moment they pick up their first block. And our ultimate purpose is to inspire and develop children to think creatively, reason systematically, and release their potential to shape their own future. To me, that's compelling. And that vision and mission has taken Legos from a basic plastics manufacturing company to a company that has influenced millions and millions of children and still has space. I don't know how they can afford it in the Dadeland Mall and is selling Lego sets, like still selling Lego sets. And it's inspirational and it's impactful. And that's what mission statements and vision statements are capable of doing. And that's the power of mission and vision. Tesla is to create the most compelling car company of the 21st century by driving the world's transition to electric vehicles. Marriott is be the number one, not the number two. We want to be the best of the best. We don't want to be the best of the best. We want to be the only ones who do what we do. Number one hospitality company in the world. Microsoft Corporation to enable people throughout the world to realize their potential. Very similar to Legos, huh? Maybe they copied that from Legos or communication style of a charismatic leader. And remember when we talked about leadership styles, and a charismatic leadership style was one of, I think there was about 10 different styles. And then we had transformational leadership style, on and on and on. But here are some of the ways in which charismatic leaders communicate. Visions and goals presented in a colorful, imaginative, expressive manner, communicate openly with group members and create a comfortable communication climate, set agendas that fit interests of constituents and solicit their viewpoints on critical issues, encourage two-way communication with team members, yet still project confidence, leadership by inspiration, articulate highly emotional message, use metaphors and analogies, gear language to different audiences. All right, so I spoke earlier about how we can use emotions as a tool to inspire other people and to tap into their motivation. When you wake up in the morning, the only reason why you get out of bed, it could be a couple of reasons, but one of the main reasons is fear because you're afraid if you don't show up to work, you might get fired. Another reason you get out of bed is the emotion of would be a good positive emotion, the emotion of happiness. You're happy to be awake. You're happy that maybe today you're going skiing, or maybe today you're going to see your daughter you haven't seen in a while. Whatever that looks like, that emotion is what drives you to action. So it starts with the emotion and then it moves to action. So let me show you this quick video, and this will be the last one of the last things we do tonight. But I want to talk a little bit about the sort of the science of emotion. You got three characters in the video. You got the rider, you got the elephant, you got the path. Why is that important for a charismatic leader to understand those three things? Let me ask this question. What is the representation of the rider? Is the rationale enough? You're really smart and you're really got a great personality. It's insufficient to lead people towards a compelling mission. So what does the elephant represent? Driven by either your positive or negative emotions. You experience both of them. Negative emotions get you to move just as much as positive emotions get you to move. And negative emotions can be fear, it can be anxiety, whatever that is. It gets you to move. Positive emotions, happiness, joy, cheer, get you to move. So, okay, how about the path? So now you have the rationale. Hey, I understand why we need to go somewhere. You have the emotion, now I'm motivated to go somewhere. What if you don't know where you're going? Destination, a desired future state. So what I'm trying to say is you got a really smart person who's highly motivated on your team. They don't know where to channel that smartness and motivation. Like they're Einsteins and they're, you know, the Rocks, what's this guy's name? The Rock. Alan Einstein and Dwayne Johnson combined on your team, and he's ready. He's ready. She's ready. I mean, it'd be kind of weird, but where am I going? You know what I mean? Like, I'm ready. But if you don't tell them where they're going, they don't know how to channel those skills and gifts. So a good charismatic leader knows that. He says or she says, here's where we're going. I believe in you. If you stay here, you're going to get hurt. If you come with me, I can help you grow. And oh, by the way, I can pay you. This is a rational side, $100,000 a year, and I could give you some insurance. And I promise you that where we're going is a destination that's better than where we are now. Would you like to come with me? Hopefully, the answer is yes. My daughter's crying out there. I don't know if you can hear her. Something happened. All right, so I'm a student in Dr. Kershner's class, and we learned about leadership. It's not about me, it's about you. And how can you apply this tomorrow? And when I say that, it's not about you, the student, it's about you and how you can influence the people around you. Create visions for other people. What does it look like for your brother and sister to graduate from high school and get into college? What does it look like for your mom to successfully raise your younger brother or younger sister? How can you get the people on your team interested in the future of their employment at that organization? You help them catch a vision. That's a technique for developing charisma. Be enthusiastic, optimistic, and energetic. Pretty simple. Go to the gym in the morning. Do a cold plunge if you have to. Get into work. Smile. Show up with a positive attitude, ready to go. Get ample rest and physical exercise. Pretty straightforward. If you have ample rest, physical exercise, there's a higher propensity for you to have higher emotion or better, more positive emotion. Be sensibly persistent, but know when to cut loose. So how can I talk about sensibly persistent? My father, who I love dearly, I believe has a little bit of he is very, very, very visionary, and he's so good at it. Yet sometimes people don't want to do what he's doing. So we were in the Bahamas, and he wanted to go out on the boat, and he wanted to go on the boat, and he wanted to see the pigs, and he wanted to see the turtles, and he wanted to go to the rope swing in the Bahamas. And we had about 3 hours, and he wanted to do it really bad. So he pitched it. And it was pretty clear that between my wife and I, we didn't want to go. And he didn't quite get it. And at a certain point, I had to be like, Dad, listen, I love you, here for you. I want to spend time with you. But I also want to spend time with my wife, and I'm not interested in going on the boat with you. And I had to be sort of like, hello, because he was too persistent. So the point is, yes, you can be persistent. I really liked it, but there's a certain point where you have to say, okay, let's not be as persistent. But it really looked like a great thing to do, and it probably for some of you, it sounded like a great thing to do. So remember people's names. This is a big one. I'm not good at it. If you were to grade me on my charisma based on this bullet point alone, I would fail miserably. It's important to understand a skill. My wife told me that she read this book called Moonwalking with Einstein, if anyone's read this book. And every time she hears someone's name, she somehow puts it into her little compartment. She's got like a room, like a familiar place in her brain that she closes her eyes and goes to every time she meets a person. Don't ask me how. And she like associates the name with something in the room. And then every single time she meets somebody, she's developed a skill to do that. She remembers their name. And thankfully, I married her. So whenever we're together, I always say, "Babe, what's that person's name?" And she knows. So that's very helpful to remember people's names because remember, your name is usually the most important word to you when you're in a room with a bunch of people. Develop synchrony with others. So what that means is when somebody is at when you're talking to somebody and they're leaning forward, good thing is to lean forward as well. When they're leaning back, good thing is to lean back with somebody. If you're in a conversation with somebody, you should try to speak at the same pace, the same tone. You should you should be synchronous with them. Find out how to jive well with them, sort of be in sync. Charismatic people are capable of doing that. And not only are you capable of doing that, and that's why sometimes I'm like, I wish I could see you and I can't see you because I don't know if you're falling asleep right now or what you're doing. It's like it's hard for me to match and be synchronous with people online. But in class, I can. And even in a group, you could sort of tell when it's time to tell a story or it's time to take a break or it's time to watch a movie or watch a clip because you're in sync with them. It's not just you talking to them. It's a two-way conversation, synchronized. Develop a personal brand, including making an impressive appearance. Try to dress the part. Try to be confident in what you're wearing, how you're looking, standing up straight, walking with confidence, eye contact, always a good thing. Be candid with people. People like candor. There's a great book. I forget this lady's name. It's just called Radical Candor. Kim Scott, I believe is her name. I'm pretty sure. Radical Candor. I highly recommend it. People want the truth. They want feedback. And candor is a good thing. Charismatic leaders are capable of being candid. I was candid with my father when I told him I don't want to go on the boat. Please, no, thank you. Boundary. Okay. People respect that, understand that. Make adjustments to project charisma. No, sorry, to project charisma. Take up 1/3 of screen. Oh, so this is my ability to project charisma through the screen and your ability to project charisma through the screen. When you do your role plays, put your camera on, put your face. I can't even see. So, let me see if I can hide show self view. All right, let's see. I mean, I'm pretty much there. Your face should take up 1/3 of the screen. So this is about right. This is how, if you spoke like this, it's a little stiff, but projecting charisma visually is a good thing. Wanda, you're doing it great right now. If I'm way over here in the corner, a little bit more difficult. If I'm way up here like this is a funny one. Hey, how you doing? So that doesn't really work. So there's a way to project charisma through the screen as well. Speaking confidently, speaking slowly, something I need to practice as well. These are some of the things you can do virtually. Good news, experimental evidence indicates charisma can be taught. Charisma can be taught, and I pray and I hope that you see the value in charisma. And next on Wednesday, we're going to present a little bit, and I'll also talk about transformational leadership because we didn't get to it today. But again, most importantly, I hope you can see how charisma can help you become a better leader. And I hope that you were able to pick up some tactics that you can practice in your everyday life. And I hope in some way this class tonight has influenced you. I appreciate you being here. We are done for the night. If you have any questions, I'll stick around and answer them, but hope you guys have a great night.